Hello, everyone. This is Tribu Chiavello from Primo Magazine, coming to you today from Washington, D.C. And today's date is July 16th, 2025. It's a scorcher today in the nation's capital. It was low this morning around 88 degrees, and now it's up to about 98 degrees and hot and humid. And it gets hot during the day, and then it really rains at night. And so we're just left with a lot of heat and humidity, but the trees love it, and the grounds love it, and the flowers love it, and so I guess we have to love it too. But anyway, I'm coming to you today, and the topic is news from a Italian American perspective, and I'm just going to focus on the political situation, the politics of New York City. This is a big election for all Italian Americans because New York City is so important to us. I said this before in my previous podcast, that you can almost say that the Italian American experience begins and ends in New York City. No matter where you are, I have found that people, they can live in Pennsylvania, Ohio, wherever it is. Their family came through Ellis Island, and they might have spent time in New York City before they moved onward. We have about 800,000 people living in New York City who are Italian Americans. Everywhere you turn is an Italian American name in a store someplace. We've had political leaders come there. We've made all kinds of contributions to that city, and we want to keep it. We want to keep it running right, and it hasn't been running right for some time, but it could get a lot worse if the current front runner, Zoran Mamdani, wins. My goodness. So we're going to have to do what we can to make sure he loses, and to see if we can get an Italian to be the mayor. So we have two Italians running for the election, running for mayor of New York. We have, of course, Andrew Cuomo. And Andrew Cuomo, he lost. He was a former governor. He lost to Mamdani in the primaries. And 2 days ago, he made the announcement that he's back in the race as an independent. This is what his father did against Ed Koch back in 1977. Mario Cuomo lost to Koch in the primaries, but he kept on running as an independent. He linked up with some of the other parties that are there. New York is kind of weird. It has like some small parties, that are available for you to link up in and run. And this is kind of what his father did. I think he's just going to run as an independent. And I think he was ready for this because he already started an independent party to allow him to do something like this. He made a good statement, though, when he's running. He said that in his announcement to run as an independent, he said only 13% of the voters voted. So, how can we really look at that and make the case that Mamdani, whoever it is really capturing the mandate of the people? So that's his view of things. And, he really wants to get back in it. I can understand why he does. He loves politics. He loves the power, the prestige. He had to leave in a disgrace. And he wants to get back in. And he wants to get back in as mayor of New York. He has a kind of a strange ad that he put on social media. It has him in a car. He has his car, and the hood is up. And he's got a dead battery. In summertime, and he's got the chargers there, and he's putting it there where the battery is, and it links up to another car, a young Hispanic guy, and he turns the car on, and it restarts, and off he goes. And you get the symbolism, of course. He's restarting his campaign, he's getting back up again, and he shakes the young man's hand. How many dead batteries are there in the summertime? But I guess it does happen. But he said also, Andrew Cuomo told about his grandfather briefly. I don't know which side of the family that's on. His grandfather on his mother's side of the family was all Sicilian, and he was a pretty good businessman. He did pretty well for himself. And maybe that's what he's referring to. Maybe that's the person he's referring to about how, when you're down, you get back up again, and you keep on fighting. And that's what he's going to do. So we commend his fighting spirit. But Primo is going to do what we can to help in this election. I'm convinced if Mamdani gets in, he's going to tear down Columbus statues. He's going to make life very difficult for a lot of people there in New York City. And Italian Americans, we don't want to have them uh, be the recipient of pain and anguish because of his political imagination. His ideas, most of them haven't worked before, and I doubt they're going to work now. So we're going to go and we're going to endorse a candidate. Primo's going to endorse the Republican candidate, and that's Curtis Sliwa, and he's Italian. So Primo endorses Curtis Sliwa. Curtis Sliwa, founder of the Guardian Angels. Fascinating character and a fascinating story about him. I'm going to talk about him. His mother, he's half Italian. His father was Polish, and his father's name is Chester. He was in the Merchant Marine, and he was the boat was in harbor in Manhattan. He had some R&R, met Curtis's mother, and they got married. Curtis's mother is Francesca Bianchino. That's the maiden name. And her father and mother came from Apulia. So he's Pugliese. Curtis Sliwa is half Pugliese. And his father, Fidel Bianchino, lived in the house he grew up in. So, you figure that, I said his grandfather lived in the house that he grew up in. His father was away often for the Merchant Marine on journeys on the ocean there. And so, his grandfather, took the place of his father in those moments to guide him and help him and then teach him how to be a man. And, for the most part, he had a pretty good upbringing. He was born in Canarsie, Brooklyn on March 26, 1954. Now, let me just say this, and you can like this video and you can subscribe to this video. Curtis Sliwa, all the candidates, you have Zohan Mamdani, you have Andrew Cuomo, and you have Eric Adams. Okay, of those candidates, Sliwa included, right? He deserves it more than any of them. I mean, he really does. I mean, think about this for a second. When Mamdani was 1 year old, okay, Sliwa already took 3 bullets for New York. He got shot at the time when Mamdani was just a little baby. He got shot because he spoke truth to power. He spoke against crime. He spoke against organized crime. This is what the police say and the prosecutors say. That on his radio show, this is back when, I think it was 1992, June of 1992. So maybe Mamdani wasn't even born then, to be honest with you. And his parents aren't even there in New York, right? They came to New York in 1996, so they have no connection to New York City at all, really. And he's there, and he's getting shot. He got kidnapped. It was June 1992. He wanted to take a taxi to, I think it was Madison Square Garden he wanted to go to, I think. And they took him in a different direction. And he didn't notice it, but there was somebody under the dashboard came up with a revolver and shot him. And he got shot, I think, 3 times. And they're hollow bullets, too. So they spread the shrapnel all over his stomach and groin area. He got out of the taxi by breaking the window. And, they pushed him out. And he was trying to get out that way. But imagine that. He's getting shot. On a radio show that he had, he was accusing the John Gotti's son for a crime, and the police and the prosecutors believe that the Gambino crime family under John Gotti Jr. or John Gotti put a contract on him. And that's the story of his life. He survived, and he's came back stronger than ever. And that's really what he's all about. He's a brave man and a noble man in many respects. And I think what he's done for New York, I think is very important. We should consider that when we vote this November. He grew up in Canarsie, Brooklyn, and he makes a big deal about that. How it was a blue collar area. He says it was the last stop before he got to Long Island. And he's there, and he's a paper boy. He's delivering papers for the New York Daily News. And a house, he's got his papers all rolled up. He's got them in the cart for his bicycle. and he's getting ready to deliver the newspapers, and there's a house on fire. And he gets off his bike, and he goes into the house. He goes into the house. He's a 15-year-old boy. He goes into the house to see if he can help anybody, and he rescues 4 people. And he was named the Newsboy of the Year by the New York Daily News, and the mayor at the time, John Lindsay, this is in 1970, commended him, and he had a trip down to the White House where he was able to shake hands and meet President Richard Nixon. Quite astounding. He had a recycling business at one point in time in his basement. He collected bottles and cans and things, and newspapers. And back then, that was before they had before we had the garbage can, and we do it nowadays, each resident. I remember growing up, that's kind of, they had a thing, if you collected 10 bottles or so, when you brought it to one of the recycling centers where I grew up in Wallington, New Jersey, you could get like a nickel or something like that. And I think he did the same thing that he was doing. He had so he had a nice little business going for himself, and he was always a leader. Curtis Sliwa, he was Brooklyn Prep. He was elected class president, and he wanted to change the school uniform policy because you had to wear a jacket and tie. So what did the Jesuits do? This is a senior year. They kicked him out. They expelled him. So he had to go to the public school to graduate, and he hated it there. I thought all the kids were, not paying attention. He said that most of the kids were stoned, and so he left. He left school. He never graduated from high school. He dropped out, but he said, it didn't affect him. He went on to have a career and have a life that was in New York City. He was one of these people. When I was growing up, he was always in the news. He had a lot of big characters back then. You had, of course, Merritt Koch. You had Rudy Giuliani. You had Mario Cuomo, Senator Alphonse D'Amato. He was a character. Then you had Donald Trump. He was always in the news. And Curtis Sliwa. And Curtis Sliwa made the news in February 13th, 1979. He started a group called the Magnificent 13. And then that group became the Guardian Angels. What happened was he got a job as the night manager for McDonald's in the Bronx. And what happened to him was there was a lot of, it was nighttime. He had to make a night deposit. It was a very dangerous place. And there's 2 reports as to how he began the Guardian Angels. One was that, he wanted to clean up the place. He wanted to clean the grounds. He wanted to clean the litter and the trash and this sort of thing. And so he got his employees to help him out. And they went around, they cleaned everything. And then he thought, well, why don't we do this in Manhattan? And they did that as well. And then they realized what people need is not clean streets, so to speak, litter-free or graffiti-free streets, but crime. Crime is the problem. So that's why he started the Magnificent 13. The Magnificent 13 is reminiscent of the Magnificent 7 movie, where a group of people are going to come and protect the citizens. And that's where he got the name from. But another story, that's how he started the Guardian Angels, is that, he's a manager of McDonald's in 1977. This is in the Bronx off Fordham Road. And a friend of his, an Asian American man, says, you got to protect yourself. You got to have bats and chains and things to protect yourself from these people who are going to come in at night. And sure enough, one guy comes in there and doesn't want to pay for the Big Macs that he ordered. So Sliwa, as the manager, jumps over the counter and fights him. And he wins the fight. And then, I don't know, maybe some months later, whatever it was, there was a gang called the Savage Nomads, a gang of kids, and they came into the McDonald's that he was working at night, and they started vandalizing the place. So he jumped over the counter to fight the gang leader. And how gangs work. He was fighting the gang leader while all the other gang members jumped in. So he called for help. And the workers at McDonald's, these are the guys, they're flipping hamburgers, they're cooking French fries, they're making you the milkshakes. They had to jump over the counter with the bats and clubs and things and fight it out with the with this gang, the Savage Nomads. So it's the Savage Nomads versus the McDonald's people, the Big Mac attackers. And they fight, and the McDonald's staff wins. They won. They pushed out the this gang from the McDonald's. And so Sliwa said, why don't we do this in a bigger and better place? Why don't we go and walk with me, and we'll tour the places in New York. We'll make sure that people are protected. And that's what he did. And so, they ventured to the subways. That's where most of the crimes were. And they were there to protect the people. They got news. And so eventually had more people joining his organization. So he decided to call it the Guardian Angels. And his mother, Francesca, helped him. His father helped him. She did the bookkeeping and the public relations. And the Guardian Angels, he made sure everybody had a red beret. You see him carrying it nowadays. And the purpose of that was so that you could see them at night, bright red. A white shirt also would be more recognizable. And had the Guardian Angels logo, which was like the wings of an angel that they had there. He went to the belly of the beast. This is what he did. He went to the most dangerous places in New York in the subways. He went to Times Square, 42nd Street. He went to Grand Central. He had people go there. He had Union Square Station, 125th Street in Harlem, the subway there, and the Hoyt Schermerhorn Station in Brooklyn. And, he must have had about maybe in the early 80s, maybe 1,000 people that joined him, and it just caught on. He started having chapters all around the country, and today he makes the claim that they have about 8,000 members in 145 cities around the world. I think he states, and that seems incredible. But the Guardian Angels is one of these organizations. I recall William Wyler. He made a movie called. He was director. He made a movie called Friendly Persuasion about the Quakers, and it starred Gary Cooper and Anthony Perkins. The Quakers, of course, are pacifists, and they take a vow of passivity. And he said, the only problem with the Quakers are there's not enough of them, and that's what I feel about the Guardian Angels. An incredible group, a great group. The idea that they will go and volunteer to go and protect people from assaults, from criminal assaults, from muggings and robberies, and even something worse. There's just not enough of them. It would be great if there was more people that would join this organization to help. So I'm going to put a link on their website. They're still very active, and Curtis Sliwa was still is still head of the organization. He's never taken a salary, which is amazing. That I find interesting, is that he doesn't get any corporate sponsorships, no big donations. The tax report that I could see from 2019 says that they brought in $200,000. Now, just compare that to some of these nonprofit organizations that are there, like United Way or something like that. A tiny amount. And how is he able to keep it going is amazing. He had a bunch of angels. Some of them were killed in the line of duty. It's a dangerous job. Malcolm Brown in 1980, Sherman Geiger in 1987. There was a young kid named Glenn Dozer in 1993. Frank Melvin in 1982 was the first one who was killed in Newark, New Jersey. A cop shot him. And this is kind of what happens. The cops will see them sometimes, and they run into a dispute like that with them. It's a dangerous job because he taught them all he taught them all martial arts, and he taught them all how to make a citizen's arrest. So when there's a problem, they see a confrontation, they're supposed to go in and intervene. They're supposed to really dive in and stop what's happening. And at first he wanted to see if it could de-escalate it peacefully. But then he realized that wasn't possible because the criminal suspect would fight them and do other things. They don't carry any weapons. And throughout the years, they started this organization in 1979. Since that time, they've only had one lawsuit. So here they are fighting criminals. And and a bunch of them have gotten killed. I mean, what's the count? I think there's like 7 of them have lost their lives. There was somebody, 2 angels, Juan Alivio and Frank Sanchez in the Bronx, were killed in 1983. It's just some of the people. And in the beginning, it said, because he's got these kids and they're roaming the streets, and here he is, an Italian, Polish guy, and almost all the guardian angels are Hispanic or black or Asian, and just a few of them are Italian, Irish, and Jewish. But they're roaming in the area, and they're trying to bring order to the chaos, which is happening. And the mayor at the time is Ed Koch, and he condemns them. He totally condemns them. He says they're a vigilante squad, and he had the police investigate them. And at that time, he was getting Sliwa was getting arrested a lot because they said he was interfering in law enforcement when he was down there at the subways and other things. So I think he said he got arrested almost 100 times doing all the things he did. But that's still quite significant. Throughout this whole process, Koch investigates them, and he finds nothing wrong with them. It's a legitimate organization, and he never really supported their work until he was no longer mayor, and Sliwa had got shot. He got shot when he took on he had a radio show, and he spoke out against the Gambino crime family. This is what the police say, the prosecutors. They never were able to get John Gotti Jr. For the crime. It was always a hung jury, but Curtis Sliwa, he's never backed away from it. He's always made the case that he was they tried to kill him. The mafia tried to kill him. He has had an interesting time as the Guardian Angels. When Bernard Goetz, he was armed with a gun. He was being picked on by some kids with sharpened screwdrivers. He shot him, and he defended Bernard Goetz. And then when Rudy Giuliani ran for mayor, he endorsed Rudy Giuliani. And after when Giuliani became mayor, WABC allowed him to speak on the radio. So he had his own radio show. And that's kind of how he began to make some money. He's not a rich man. So that's one thing. Him running for mayor, he's at a disadvantage because he's got no people that he can reach out and collect money. They collect a lot of money to run. But he, at one point in time, he was actually sleeping in the office at WABC because he married a bunch of times, had kids, and his record's not totally pure. He's admitted that he lied a couple of times about things regarding the Guardian Angels, regarding what lives they saved, and some other things that he did. But you can't take that away from him and the people. I mean, he has brought some hope when people are commuting. I mean, it's exasperating when you think about it that the crime is allowed to get this out of hand, and that's what's happening now. So he's had his radio show since the 90s. I used to listen to him once in a while. It was very funny, and throughout the 80s and part of the 90s, he was always on TV. He was always on the local news. He was on the Morton Downey show. He was on Howard Stern. He was always in the media. But how he was living was he was either sleeping in the office or he was living temporarily at some sort of rent-controlled apartment that he could get. He hasn't made much money at all at this. He's never taken a salary, and they don't get a lot of contributions. So, when he trains people for martial arts and things, it's like a church somewhere. They'll donate the space to them and this sort of thing. And I find that kind of sad that here's a group of kids trying to help people protect themselves, protect these people, many of whom are elderly, by the way, from crime. And, you would think they would get a lot more support. But he's running for mayor, and we endorse him. And, just because he's taken a few bullets, of course, that alone is reason to vote for him, although I think that should be a big plus in his effort. And the fact that he started this incredible organization that's done so much good for so many people, I mean, it's inspiring. It's almost like you have these kids, they could easily go the way of crime. They don't. They join the Guardian Angels. And you have to say a lot for him for that. But he ran in 2021. He lost to Eric Adams. And he's running as a Republican. And the media is there saying it's a fait accompli. A Republican can't win. I don't know. Did they put their heads in the sand for the last 20 years? Because you had uh, Rudy Giuliani. He was able to win 2 terms as a Republican. You had Michael Bloomberg. He won 3 terms as a Republican and independent. What happens is the Republicans combine with other parties to make a run for it. The pollster Zogby, John Zogby, I think it was. Whenever they take any type of surveys in New York, it's not as cut and dry for the Democrats as you would think. And he says the reason for that is because the outer boroughs, parts of Queens, parts of Brooklyn, Staten Island, they will vote Republican. They will use their common sense and vote Republican. And sometimes when things get really bad and they want to turn to the Republicans, Manhattan can sometimes shift. But Curtis Sliwa, that's what he's banking on. He's banking on the outer borough, the moderates there in the outer borough, to put him on top. If the race becomes divided with Mamdani and Cuomo and Eric Adams, and they're fighting each other, that may reduce their votes, and he might be able to sneak in to get the election. He doesn't have much money. That's the thing, but he's making up for it, I think, with a lot of social media posts. He's going to places throughout New York that are really poorly run. A lot of litter, trash, graffiti, terrible pot epidemic, marijuana epidemic. That's everywhere. Homelessness. And he's showing what's happening. He's showing the crimes, and he's speaking out against it. That, I think, is worthwhile. He's also a celebrity, and so that might help. But he's, it's going to be a battle for him, no doubt. But we're going to try to help him the best way we can. I'm going to put a link into his campaign if you want to volunteer or help in any way. He's a good man, and his platform I like. It's funny. It's different than Mamdani's. When you go and check out Mamdani's platform, it's like, he's got all of these great ideas. It's going into all kinds of details and stuff. That's not the way. He's not going to allow people to, live their own lives, and that's going to be a big problem. You never go with the utopian viewpoint. It never works. It's very tough to work because they just don't let people, live their lives and do what they have to do. It's government interference can wreak havoc in a lot of places. And Mandan and Sliwa, his platform, he's got a bunch of things he wants to do. He wants to add 7,000 more police officers to the police department, and this is a no-brainer. I visited New York recently, and the high crime wave that I experienced growing up, from like the 70s throughout the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, it reminded me, if I had to pick a year that most resembles nowadays, I would pick probably 1988. Because as crime, it's still but it's not as bad as it was in the 70s. But for nowadays, it's worse than it's been the last 10 years. Eric Adams, he just hasn't done the job to bring down crime. It's not entirely his fault. He inherited a mess from Bill de Blasio. He's kind of reminiscent of David Dinkins, who kind of inherited a mess from Ed Koch. And, this is the way it is there. And so Curtis Sliwa wants that 7,000 more cops. I'd like to see him add 14,000 new cops to try and curb crime. And this is what he's going to focus on. He's going to allow every precinct, get this, to have a direct line to the mayor's office. So the captain of the precinct can contact the mayor's office immediately about something. And this is, we'll see how that works. I don't know if the police commissioner will like that, but that might not be a bad idea. At least he'll have a notification of big crimes. He can go out there and speak up about it. He's going to target quality of life crimes. God bless him. He wants to cut down on the graffiti. The graffiti is terrible. And the litter and the trash and the people doing these terrible things, jumping over the subway, not paying the fare and just trying to, break the law at will. And he's going to target that. And, he's going to, when it comes to graffiti and trash and things, he's going to send the city out to clean it up. And then he's going to send a bill to the owner of the building. And that, I think, makes a lot of sense because, some kid comes along and spray paints your wall. You got to clean it up. So a lot of people just leave their properties in bad shape, and you're left with a very unseemly, unsightly mess. And he wants to correct that. He wants to look at animal welfare. He's an animal welfare advocate, and the shelters right now. When you have a dog or a cat or something like that, what he's going to do, he's going to say you can't kill them. So he's going to have no kill shelters where the dogs or the animals don't die. I'm not sure how long he could preserve that because after a while, you have these dogs and cats that don't claims. You got to do something with them. So maybe he has some idea where he can maybe give them to certain people in different parts of the country or something like that. But anyway, it's a nice thing he wants to do, I think. He wants to support property tax overhaul. This is what he does. He wants to change the property taxes. And the property taxes in New York are kind of strange. It's the city has to assess your property, and then they tax you like 20% or something like that. But then they reduce it where you only pay maybe 7%. And he wants to freeze the increases. He wants to do a market assessment rather than the city assessment. And that will lower the assessment because, when the city assesses your property, they always jack up the price because they want the tax revenue. He's going to change that. And he's also going to, this is a great idea, he's going to end exemptions for private universities and hospitals and Madison Square Garden. Yes, Madison Square Garden, home of the Knicks, and I guess home of the Rangers. They don't pay taxes. They don't pay taxes on the property. All those rock bands that come there, all these things that are happening, all tax-free, property-wise. And he wants to change that. And the universities, folks, they never get smaller. They always get bigger. And why? Because they don't have to pay any property tax. Well, he's going to end those exemptions. So we totally welcome that. Everybody's got to be equal, these universities are getting huge nowadays. They make a lot of money. They're nonprofits, but they're making huge profits. It's quite stunning. And if you're a senior and you make $75,000 a year, he's going to give you a property tax relief. I'm sorry. So that might be a big help. Now, about crime, he's going to overhaul the awful, terrible 2019 bail reform. That has just made a mess of the city. It has just allowed criminals, the police arrest them, and they're able to get out right away. No cash bail. Well, he's going to end that, he says. He's going to try to end that. I think that was done by the state. So I don't know if he can do it directly as the city mayor, but he can try to lobby to the state, try to get that done. He will repeat offenders. If you committed a crime more than once, sorry, you're going to have to pay cash to get out of jail. And that might slow that down. That might slow the, the burglars, the robbers, the rapists, the murderers, whatever they are. They get arrested, they get out right away, and you don't want that to happen. I don't know why they came up with this inane idea, but they did, and it's just made the city more crime-ridden. And but if you're a low-level, non-violent suspect, you don't have to. You can pay cash bail. He's going to introduce. He's going to try to test the universal basic income. So he's going to pick 500 people, he says, randomly there in New York, and the city's going to give them $1,100 a month. For New York, that's not a huge amount of money, but he's going to see what happens. And it doesn't matter what class they're from, poor, rich, middle class, whatever it is, blue collar, you're going to get that money. So he wants to try that out. That was what Andrew Yang wanted to do. It's a little bit different than what I thought he was going to do. I thought Sliwa was going to do more with what Milton Friedman has said was with the poor. You could eliminate Medicaid for them and welfare for them and just give them money. Just give them what they need. They need money to get out of poverty. And he thought that would be more effective than having these programs. You figure somebody who's healthy Medicaid, although it's very humane, doesn't really help them that much because they don't have to go. They're not going to go to a hospital. What they need is money to get out of poverty. And I thought Sliwa was going to do that, but now this is going to try to do a basic income, where universal basic income, where it doesn't matter what your situation is, you're going to get $1,000 a month. So he's going to test that out, see how that works. And he's going to try and win the outer borough moderates because he's going to be the only one of the candidates who opposes City of Yes, this rezoning thing that they want to do, where they just, homes, residences. If this goes into place, you probably see a lot of those homes and residences, Howard Beach, parts of Staten Island, a lot of detached homes there. They might be bought out by big developers, and they're going to build these big, huge, buildings there in the outer boroughs and more things. And that he wants to resist that. He's going to try to stop that from happening. What he's going to do is he's going to try to put in place controls where you won't lose the residential, the detached homes, the row homes there in New York City, in the outer boroughs. So he's going to fight displacement, he says. And that's something to be commended. So he's got a lot of things he wants to do. And, he's just doing my research about him. I couldn't help but be impressed. A brave man, and he's fighting the good fight. He wants to, he loves his city. He loves, he didn't want to see people hurt or harmed. He got this noble activity from his grandfather, because his grandfather one time stood up to some gangsters in the neighborhood. And his father was a tough guy, and here's somebody who is just he's New York through and through. He started an incredible organization, and he's running for mayor. And he really is the only one I see that he got hurt for speaking up when no one else did. Really, crime was just going its way, and he did something about it. He was a man of action. Took his people, recruited them, young kids, and took them to a place where they could took them to the most violent areas of the city. And he started this organization right after the film The Warriors came out, which is a good movie, by the way. But he did this to help, and that, I think, says a lot about him. So Primo Magazine, we're going to endorse Curtis Sliwa. If you're living in New York and you can vote this election, vote for Curtis Sliwa for mayor of New York. He's the right man for the job. He's the thing that New York City needs more than anyone. He's got the right plans for the city. Eric Adams, I like him, but he's very low in the polls, and you can't vote for him. Andrew Cuomo, no for now at least. And whatever you do, I mean, don't vote for Mamdani. If you know somebody who wants to vote for Mamdani, buy him a beer. Don't let him vote, for that day, whatever it is. Try and stop that from happening. So anyway, Italian Americans, we love New York. New York is so important to us, and we want the Italian American experience to stay there. The Columbus statues, Columbus Day is safe in Sliwa's hands, no doubt about it. He's a patriot. He loves his country. He loves his city. He loves his Italian background. He talks a lot about it, and was a real all-American kid growing up. He's an all-American man, and we want him to be the mayor of New York City. He'll do a great job. We're very confident of it. So I'll leave that as it is. Again, Curtis Sliwa for mayor. Primo endorses him. Go vote for Curtis Sliwa. And I'll have more news coming up later in the week from a Italian American perspective. I want to thank you very much for listening. And please like and share this video, and subscribe also. If you subscribe, we can do more. We can have more videos like this, and we can do more things from Italian American lens. So thank you very much.